Now I'm live. You know, this is a process, all this stuff to go live. So I'm glad to be here and making sure I'm everywhere that I'm supposed to be. One viewer is waiting. That means I think, live here. The best place to check it is here. So bear with me. This is a process. I think I have it. Oh, yay. Thank goodness. Oh my God. Sometimes, just so we're all clear, this is Conscious Mind Tripping. It's Wednesday night, and you are with me, myself, and I this evening. It's us, and you get to ask any questions that you would like. Let me make sure the volume is the volume is good tonight. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes watching yourself afterwards, it's kind of like, do we really need to? And now that I have all these little reels that are going, it's like a lot. And especially last week, I had the beautiful Amy Dalglish on my show, and we have to redo it because somehow or another, when I was at home, I moved something and the sound just went wanky. I was at home. No. I don't want to hear that anymore. So if you have any questions, go to Audrey Newmont on Facebook, and I can see you there. So what I was starting to say is I am creating my own studio. I have this special spot at my home, and I'm going to have it all set up so I don't have to deal with all this nonsense anymore. Welcome. Here we are. And it is going to be a lot of a conversation tonight. I have a lot to talk about. It has been a lot of weeks of guests. I had Kai Hood on this past Saturday. If you did not see that, you got to watch it. And then he had me on his podcast, Refounders. I'm so impressed with what he's doing. And he's got this group of people, and they are creating a movement. And it is really awesome to watch. So like he was saying on my podcast, his generation is going to be the ones that are going to have to really get in and do a lot to make life better. And he's one of these people that's going to be able to do that. So if you haven't seen that podcast yet, it was the last one that I did here on Conscious Mind Tripping Saturday. And then the one before with Amy, we're going to redo it. And tonight I have a whole bunch of things to talk about. And you are more than welcome to ask questions. I can see the questions here on my feed, and I can see them on Facebook. So I'm going to start out with the announcements. If you have ever been curious about doing numerology or learning more about numerology, my husband wrote a book, Numerology from Sex to Stocks. It's all in the numbers. And he's going to be teaching a class coming up here very soon. I think this coming Saturday. And then on the 26th or the 27th, we have a psychic panel with an amazing, amazing group of psychics. There'll be 4 of them on that Saturday. It'll be from 11 to 2. And they are just amazing. They're really, really, really good. And last time we had all these 4 together, it was phenomenal. And then we've got the artwork class that I do with the crystals. That's coming up, I believe, on the 27th. You know, rather than saying all these dates, you can go to newmontcenter.net and you can see all of the events that we have going on. We also have Nick teaching an I Ching class, and we have some other things that we're going to be throwing in there. So check it out. And I think that's all for announcements for now. And actually, I have one other announcement. We have rooms that we rent out here, and we've got some fabulous practitioners that use that space. So if you know anybody in the Agora Hills area that is looking for space to rent, we have a lovely practitioner room and they can do energy healing, massage, whatever. It's geared towards where you can do therapy, talk therapy, or you can do body work. It's right there, right next to me. So we're renting that out on a regular basis. We also have a large group room that we rent out as well. So you can check these all out on our website. Wanted to mention that because I've been hearing a lot of people wanting to have space, so we've got it available. And now I want to get into things. And the first thing I want to talk about is actually Mr. Hood. Kai just called me and wanted to share the story. And I think it's an important thing to get, especially in this moment right now. So he was sharing with me about literally about tipping somebody. And this person, I guess they're financially challenged, whatever. And he went to put the tip down, and I don't think he minds me sharing this. He heard spirit, and it was like he needed to put down a bigger tip. And he literally, in his budget and his finances, I was so impressed when he said this, though I didn't say it at the moment. He has a budget just for sharing, for giving, for, sharing the abundance. And I just was so impressed with that. It's tithing. And Spirit said, jack up the price a little bit there. And so he did. And I guess the person was very grateful. And you do when you're tithing, like I tithe in ways as well. And I always find that when I'm generous and I'm giving, it's like we get it back. And so he got it back. He wasn't expecting anything. And out of nowhere, he received, I think, 3 different sources of abundance, of financial abundance. So when you are in the process of creating, there's all these different rules of the road. And one of them is reciprocity. So just recently, I put it out there for different avenues that we can donate towards the hurricane victims. And I think that sometimes people are like, oh, I'm a little financially strapped here or there or whatever. And when you are giving from the heart and there is this flow of money going out, there's going to be another flow of money coming in. We're in that reciprocity of life. And I see this all the time. In fact, Nick has some really good stories about all of that as well. So it's really important if you find yourself, oh, I can't give because, really check yourself and give from the heart. And it is amazing how the universe conspires to not only give back to you, but then some. So I wanted to share that because we're going into the holiday season, and especially right now, there's a lot of people in need, a lot of people in need. So if you can give, great. If you can give in any way of service, that's reciprocity. However it is that you can assist fellow mankind, that is always a really good thing to do. So just wanted to share that first because I just got that phone call and I was wildly impressed. I'm actually very impressed with not only Kai, I work with a fair amount of people in that age range, from like 18 till, I don't know, in their 26-ish. I really love working with that range, especially the 19, 20, 21s. They are in the moment of really figuring out who they are, checking what they want to do with a career and just doing what they do. And when they're in my chair and they're learning the tools that I teach at such a young age, it's like you're setting yourself up for a foundation of great things to happen. So I wanted to share something that just also happened today. I have a client. These people are all anonymous. And we're working together, and there's somebody that they would like for somebody close to them that they wanted to have me work with them. And so this person had said to them, "Well, I don't think she can change my mind. I've got my things set, and I'm all good to go on a level in their life." And this is a young person. And I looked at her and I said, "Actually, I don't change anybody's mind. I never change anybody's mind. I give people the tools to change your own mind. That's what I do. But I'm never going to change anybody's mind. It's not my job. It's not my job to do a lot of things. My main thing that I do with people is give tools to understand how your mind works. That's the controller of you, and how to use your feelings, not push them away. And I teach people how to be more conscious in their lives. So when they were saying that this person was like, "I don't think that she can, change my mind," it's like, no, I can't. I never do. That's not what I'm about. And I think somebody or people have an idea that when you go to a hypnotherapist, that we're snapping our fingers and we're literally getting you on the other side of things just by us doing it for you, going into your subconscious mind and rearranging things for you. And to be clear, we can do that, and sometimes I help people in that process. I'll take them on a journey in their mind, and I'll do processes with them where I'm assisting with that, but never do I change the mind. And I learned that a long time ago, and maybe you've heard the story around it. It's somebody came in years ago and they had a really bad time, and they were like, "Oh my God, you've got to hypnotize me and fix this." And it was like, no. So when you are understanding how your mind works, and more importantly, how your emotions work with your mind, then you're going to change everything. And the other part of it, when these kids are coming in, I say kids because I'm about to turn 62, and to me they're kids, but they're young adults. They are in the front seat of their car, and they're adults, and they're absolutely driving. So when they are learning, when any of them are learning, it's a process. And I had somebody else that I was working with today, and I want you to get this because Kai was talking about this on the podcast the other day, and it deserves more conversation. When you're first doing this work, it is a big deal. There's a lot that people don't know. There's a lot that it's like they've just been in their lives and they think they're anxious, or they think that they're not valuable, they're not worthy. They they have issues with friends, issues with work, issues with their health, all of these things that are going on in a life. And literally, most people have no idea that there is even an ability to change it. They just think, "Ah, I was dealt this hand. I'm just this is just what things are." And the amount of people who have literally said to me, "It's just the way my brain works." It's super important to get. And I told this one client today, one of the younger ones, I said, "When you went to school, you didn't learn all of this stuff," because the person that had said to her, "They can't change my mind," they also didn't really understand what was happening in session here. I think a lot of times people think you go to therapy and you're sitting there and you're just dumping this stuff, and this is my life, and this is what's happened, and all this stuff. And in that first session in particular, I do want to hear that, and I'll be taking notes. And I'm kind of in my notes, I'm looking at your 0 to 8. I'm looking at your timeline. I'm looking at what has created this moment that you're in at this point. What's the program? What are you running? And so, like I was telling this client today, it's like, you didn't learn in school the rules of the road. You know, I've got kids that have gone through school. I've got grandkids. I talk with kids that are in school now, and it is amazing how much we don't learn about how to be in life. And I'm going to get more towards that towards the end of this time with you. So when people are having a session, what they're doing is they're learning new rules of the road. They're learning how to be in the emotions and not dissociate from them, and how to use those emotions to move themselves out of old habits, old beliefs, old ways of being, and literally owning their power. So when you're learning these new rules of the road, this is getting to that thing with that client today that I was talking to. When people first come in, it's like they're right up against the ego, right up against the kid in the back seat. And it is usually, for most people, uncomfortable at the best. But it's also, it's like there's a lot of drama, there's a lot of trauma, there's a lot of unconscious consequences. So when they first come in, I'm showing them, here's the kid in the back seat, the ego, and here's the adult in the front seat. And so they're understanding how to do things better. They're feeling better. They're learning new ways to communicate, new ways to change habits, and to be powerful in their lives. So imagine that there's a bungee cord attached, right? And so they get away from the hard stuff of life and they're feeling better. And then something always happens. And they have a slap back. And they're right up against the ego again. And they're, like this client today. I thought I was doing so good and I was feeling better and things were better. And then I don't know what happened, but I've got this anxiety again and it just doesn't feel good. And so I'm explaining to that person, they had a slapback. It's okay. And it's normal. It's part of the process of being with your feelings and understanding yourself on a greater level. So when they have that slapback, like today, there was a slapback, and now she's learning new things and she's understanding what the slapback was about. And more importantly, the new tools, how to implement them in these moments. So I'm going to get into some of those tools in a minute, but I really want you to understand there's then the next thing where something happens and you'll have another slapback. I don't want to slap so hard. You get the idea. And what happens is people, they feel better and things get better and they get further away from the struggle. And then there will be a big slapback because the cord to the core thing hasn't been cut. When it's cut, you know it. There's not going to be another slapback. There's not going to be another issue with this thing. The lesson is learned. It is like I had a massive slapback years ago, and it involved my health. I had a kidney stone, and that was the last slapback that I have had. That was like a hard feeling about my value, about my worth. And a couple podcasts ago, there was something that came up that was like another view, another perception, another piece of the puzzle of my worth, but it wasn't a slapback at that point. It was like, oh, that's something I didn't see. I didn't know. If you want to watch that podcast, it was like 3 or 4 podcasts ago, and I'm using the timeline and I'm explaining how I work through that stuff. So finally that cord is cut. There's all these little cords that attach us to the shit, the programs, all of that stuff that we took on through trauma, through the 0 to 8 programming. So when you are in the process of working through it, some people, they are in their massive anxiety. That's a big one right now. And then they're feeling better. And so they're like, oh, great, I'm done. It's figured out. And it's like, no, but enjoy the feeling better now. And if something comes up, you got to do the tools again. Like, for instance, a lot of people are having anxiety right now. It's a big deal. It's energetically in the air, in our ethers. It's like prevalent. And everybody's like got this antsiness, like something's gonna happen. And to be honest, there's a lot that is happening, and there's a lot that will create this feeling of anxiety. And so for many people, there is anxiety in the middle of the night. And I want to address that because people will just wake up in the middle of the night. They'll have that anxiety and they'll just lay there. I got to get back to sleep. I can't go back to sleep. Oh my God, this is not feeling good. This isn't good. If you wake up in the middle of the night and you have anxiety, there's things to do. Number one, if you want to, pull out your pen and paper. What am I anxious about? What is this? Is it true? That's always the question for anxiety. Literally stopping the car. Is this true? Am I okay? Even if you're ill, am I okay? Because we can be ill and we can still be okay. We can have life-threatening things and we can still be okay. So you really want to check yourself. Where am I? Is this thing workable? A lot of times it is. Most of the time it is. So when you're stopping yourself and you're asking yourself those critical thinking questions, is this going to be all right? So you can even look ahead and go, is this going to be right in an hour? I don't know. Is it going to be all right in a week? I don't know. Is it going to be all right in a month? You find that place on your timeline where it's going to be all right and you make it okay then. Another thing that you can do in the middle of the night, put something else in your ear. There's all these amazing books by fabulous people. You can go on my resource page on my website, and all the people there, most of them, pretty sure all of them, have a book that's on Audible. That's what I do. I pop it in my ear. So do anything to put your mind at rest, then your body will go at rest. And anxiety, I'm telling you, it is one of those things where you absolutely have the ability to choose calm. Sometimes it takes a little while, but you have that ability. That's part of the gift of being here with these beautiful hearts. So I really wanted to address that because the other thing with anxiety, and this is something that is, believe it or not, pretty common as well. There's such a belief around anxiety right now that, it's almost like, well, this is who I am. It's not who anybody is. It's an overload of stuff that's going on and an lack of understanding of how to deal with it, and sometimes what actually the emotion is. So if you're struggling with anxiety, anxiety literally is you're here now and you're imagining things that could happen. That's anxiety. I'm just making this very simple. Of course, it's a little bit more complicated, but I like to make things just where we can grab onto it and understand it. So when you're actually in fear, that's a different thing. You're being, in some way, shape, or form, you're not safe. There could be somebody at the door. There could be a moment of fear where you're physically challenged, could be financially challenged. Something's actually happening in the moment. When things are happening in the moment, that's when we literally stop the car and gain that clarity on what can I do right now? Or if it's fear and there's something that's possibly going to happen soon and you see that it's coming, literally, that's when you have to stop it, gain that clarity, gain that as much calm as you can so you can think clearly on the action that you want to take. Sometimes when I'm on my camping trips, there's a part of it where it's like, oh, this could be a little gnarly situation. And I have to look ahead. What will I do? So I'm not anxious. I'm not in fear. I'm literally ready to go. The other thing sometimes with anxiety is it could be suppressed feelings. like anger. I had somebody that I was talking with at a point, and they were like, I'm so anxious. I really got a lot of anxiety going on. It's like, well, what exactly is going on? And as they were telling me everything that was going on, it's like, I think that's more suppressed anger. And it was like a light bulb went off, and it was like, oh my gosh. And she could then discern the difference between anxiety and suppressed anger. So you really want to be clear on where you're at, because any one of those things requires that conscious movement forward. And so you want to be able to discern the difference between what's going on. And for general anxiety, you're asking yourself those critical thinking questions. Is this true? Is it real? What do I want to do about it? What's the solution? So all this stuff, right? Checking out my notes. Okay. I'm going to go into two other things tonight. One of them might be controversial. Just saying. But I think we need to have these conversations. I think that when we aren't looking at things clearly as a community, as a collective, if we can't look at things and we can't look at it from a point of solutions and at a point of really having full information, then, how are we all going to move forward? So the first thing that I want to talk about, it goes back to that hurricane. I put out an email the other day, well, yesterday actually, and I've been watching a lot of news with this. So I had put out a prayer request when that thing first started, and I'm looking at all my friends in Florida. So that thing went more up the coast, and you saw where it went in. And this might be a little controversial. I want you to really get, I look at a lot of different kinds of information. So almost always, and I grew up in Florida, I've watched hurricanes my whole life. In fact, I flew out as a hurricane was coming in one time. It was the scariest thing. Oh, the airport was empty. And I'm like running through an empty airport to get from Florida out here to California and thinking, I'm a little cray-cray doing this. But I did it anyway, and I white-knuckled that flight. So I have a good sense of hurricanes, and I also watch different people who are sharing news about hurricanes and earthquake and earth movement, earth happenings. So when that hit, almost always they hit land and they will slow down and they will do what they do. If you look at the whole history of these things, there's a certain element that happens, physics on a level. Well, this particular one, it didn't do the normal thing. In fact, there is different information that's out there. You can look it up. I'm not going to go into all the people right now, but there are people that you can look at that show you on the radar how when it went inland, it did something different. It did something unique. And then it continued to go into North Carolina and to eastern Tennessee and in the Appalachian Mountains. It really, massively affected people. And I watch a lot of videos of these people, and it just, the amount of people that were taken off guard, they had no idea. This has never happened there before. So when you are looking at different people's stories, and there's various ways to do that, you're not going to find that as much on the mainstream. So I have different places where I'm watching all these stories of people, and it's mostly on Twitter, which is now X. So when I'm looking at all these people's stories, it's really important to understand this is something different. So when I'm saying that we really need to be informed, we need to be aware, it's not just that this is happening over there. It is something that's happening and it's not normal. And just because it's happening over there doesn't mean that it can't happen anywhere. So it's important for us all to have an awareness that there are literally weather happenings that are going on. And you can look up, even in the patent office, where they have patents on how to make weather happen. I'm choosing my words carefully. So it's important to understand that as we're all moving forward, when I say that we need to be aware, we need to be conscious, it's because we all have an ability to change these things, to affect these changes, and to make a difference in the future of us right now and our children. And I happen to love my children and the little people very much. So I want this to be a great world for them. So we have to kind of sometimes step behind this idea of it being a theory of any kind and understand there are absolutely things happening. And so when you're looking at what happened there, there's a few reasons why things would happen there. And by the way, this looks very similar to what happened recently in Hawaii. It's looking like a very similar story. And you can look up again the things that happened there and what has happened since, and the lack of response that they are getting from the powers that be. It's like we are giving a lot of money to other countries. And you heard our president saying that the American people are going to help with this. And I'm telling you, if you watch some of these videos of these people who are actually affected, and they're sobbing, and they are having their situations. I mean, this one family, it was like incredible. This guy has the camera and he's showing outside of his home, beautiful home. He's showing outside of his home, and then he pans around and he's literally in water. And he's showing his family like in the living room, and they're all in water up to here. And he's like, I don't even know. I mean, you can tell they're in like shock. This is not normal. So it's important for us all to get, this doesn't have to be forever thing, but it has to be something where we all are being aware, we're all being conscious and not in fear around it, in solutions about it. So Nick and I were talking about it earlier, and he said, Audrey, sometimes people can't afford to give, or they can't afford to go there, or they can't afford to do, some of the things that are necessary. But one of the most powerful, powerful things that we all do is in prayer. And that's one of those things that I really wish that people understood better. I literally, for me, I just took me a long time to get to prayer. It took me a long time to get to God. But once I did, and once I understood that power, then, oh my gosh, my life really changed. So when we're all coming together as a collective and we're able to witness it, we're able to have our lights on and we're able to see what's going on for these people. It's not that it's over there. I don't want to look at it. I don't want to deal with it. It's right where you are. We're all connected. And it happened in Hawaii. Now it happened in North Carolina and Tennessee and all these other places. It's important that we have this awareness and we hold in prayer that these people are getting the help that they need, that these reasons for this happening are getting revealed, that people are waking up to things that have been going on, that this is again getting revealed. There's been so many different avenues where we have been suppressed. They call it disinformation. They call it whatever it is that they call it because there's an agenda. And it's really important to understand that agenda is just an agenda until it's not, until we are aware and we're coming together as a collective for the best and highest for all humanity. And so it's really important to understand there's an agenda here. As an example, to get these people the help that they need, and I'm not making any of this up, just to be clear, to get people the help that they need, they've got trucks going in on this one particular freeway. And there's many of these trucks that are bringing in supplies that have had their tires slashed. There's many people who want to go in private helicopters. There's this one story in particular with this guy. He wanted to go in. Well, he was going in and he was rescuing people because that's the only way you can rescue. These roads are washed out. These people are living in the mountains. And so he was going in and picking up people. Well, he flew in, he picked up some people and he told his co-pilot, who is his son, you stay here. I'm going to take these people and I'm going to come back and get you and get some more people. So when he came back into the airport where he was dropping them off, they told him, you can't go in again. He's like, what are you talking about? I'm rescuing people. I'm helping people. Nope, we're going to arrest you if you go in. He's like, what? And his son is in there. So why would they do that? And many of the people who are there are asking, where's all the helicopters? Where's all the help? There's not a lot of help. I mean, you can go online, you can see people like you and me, and they're having these situations. And some of them you don't even know yet because there's no cell phones. There's nothing for them to access, for them to have their word and speak it out to us. So the ones that I'm watching that are, it's like many of them are like, we don't even understand why we're not having the help that we need. So when I say that there's an agenda, I don't know the ins and outs of all of it, but with anything, in any given moment, consciousness is always revealed. And there is something going on that doesn't add up. It didn't add up in Hawaii, and it doesn't add up here. So we can't just keep turning our head and saying, well, it doesn't affect me. It's not about me. It's about all of us. And to be clear, there's a whole nother thing that's going on. So the ports from Texas all the way up the eastern coast, they're all on strike. Do you know what happens when everything goes on strike? We have created an environment here where most of our supplies come from other countries. And so when the ports are closed, all that food, all of the necessities of life get shut down. And it's a matter of time before that turns into chaos. So when you're looking at these things that are going on, when people don't know the whole story with something and they think this isn't happening to me, this isn't my life, it is. And I'm not saying that to be scary. I'm saying that so that we're empowered with information. It's important to be aware right now, because when you are aware, when you're informed, you're in your power. You have the ability to make conscious choices. If you're busy spending your time rolling around in a game online and you don't know what's going on in the world, and all of a sudden something happens, you're like, well, what just happened here? When you're watching TV that really isn't very beneficial on a regular basis and you're not watching viable news, then something happens and you're like, what just happened here? Like, do you even know that there is this closure of the ports? It's going to affect a lot of people. This brings me to my second part of this conversation tonight, where I have 18 minutes. I have a buddy. My buddy is Gary Stewart, and he is so clever. I love Gary. Years ago, when I was very sick, I met Gary and Jeff Sherman, who is no longer with us. I still miss him. And the three of us did a workshop called GMOs, Toxins, and Solutions. And they taught me so much. I'll never forget, we had dinner one night, and I was just sitting there hearing them, informing myself, and my mouth was, I'm sure, hanging open the whole night. And they were telling me about glyphosate, about aspartame, about this, about that, about all these things I had no idea about. And this was right around the time that I had first gone to Jeff Sherman, my holistic doctor, the very first one. And he's looking at me and he's like, your lymphatic system, it's a mess. So I never went to a doctor after that, but I'm pretty sure that I'd have gone to a doctor, it would have looked like a whole nother story. So they opened up this door for me, and Gary and I have been friends ever since. So he just sent me his book in the mail. Thank you, Gary. And I want to talk about this because as a hypnotherapist, it's all about you as my people learning about your mind. That's the controller of you. You've got your subconscious mind, you've got your critical mind, you've got your conscious mind. You've also got that little area, the primitive mind, where we go into fight, flight, freeze. A lot of people seem to be in that flight, distracting with TV, with gaming, with partying, with doing whatever. Nothing wrong with it. But if you're distracted, then you're not going to be in a position to literally make the choices that will get you what you need in any given moment in life. So Gary wrote this book about propaganda, and I haven't read the whole thing yet, but I did peek through it. And I really want you to get, Gary's so clever. He made this book where it's a really easy read and it gets right to the point. That's kind of how my book is. It's a really easy read and it gets right to the point and it gives tools. This book is very much like that. So when he's talking about propaganda and the propaganda syndrome, the title is The Intentional Mass Manipulation of the Human Mind, a Media Survival Handbook by Gary Stewart. So I want you to get this, and it's super important to understand. Back in the 1950s, and even before, but it really got ramped up in the 50s because what did we get? Oh, we got TV, and we got all these different ways for us to be distracted. And so in that distraction, we had that war, and then after the war, Germany, they had this thing where they understood that during that war there was a lot of propaganda. There was a lot of lying about what was actually happening. Because if people really understood what was happening, I think it would have looked different. But they didn't understand what was happening. I'm realizing I'm looking at the wrong camera. So when they put into effect this thing, it was called the Smith-Mundt Act. And it's important to get that they put into effect because they said in that decree that you are not able, the media is not allowed to lie. When you are coming out with information that you're telling the American people, the world at large, you have to be telling the truth. You have to be on point. So back in, I think it was 2012-ish, maybe a little before. Maybe it was 2008. I'm not sure exactly the date. Obviously, I am one of those people with numbers. There was an adjustment to that where they said, oh, you know what? We're no longer going to have the Smith-Mundt Act where the media can't lie. We're going to allow that. So when you're watching the news, they don't have to tell you the truth. They don't have to tell you the truth. They can say whatever they want. And as many of you know, because I've said it before, I used to be a big fan, a big fan of watching the news incessantly because I have this weird thing about me where I like to watch what's going on in the world. And many of you know, because I've said it here before, I have been watching a lot of news for the last 4+ years. And I mean all different kinds of news. So when you look at this and you think that maybe I'm just full of nonsense, I've watched a lot of stuff and I have a really good memory. I don't know where that came from. I can't deal with numbers, but the memory part, my clients are always blown away by what I remember. So I want you to really understand that there is a manipulation that is happening on a lot of different levels. So, and I, I want you to get, it's nothing on you. It's nothing that you've done wrong, nothing that you've done bad. It's just simply a really strong program that they've put out there for us to be distracted and for us to be manipulated in our minds. If you think about it, this whole generation that's coming up, there's a lot of kids that they're watching TV as babies and they're getting different programs in the different things that they're watching. So it's not that we've any of us done anything wrong or bad. We're just doing what we've learned to do and we've passed it down generation by generation. You know, TV is a very fun thing. I still watch it on a regular basis with Nick at night. We have certain shows that we watch and a lot of shows that we won't. So when I'm looking at all of this, the thing that I wanted to share with you with what Gary put in this fabulous book that he has, he got propaganda syndrome, the definitions and methods. So these are the ways that they capture our consciousness. This is the ways that they manipulate us. So there is censorship. So over all of these years, I've watched people after person, after podcast, after different channels. They took down my channel because it's censored. Like my best friend, one of my dearest friends, she was putting out information around what happened to her in her health when she took that thing. And they literally censored it. Other people tell their story. This is what's going on with me, or whatever the thing is, they censor that. That's taking away our free speech. So it's important when we're looking at all these kinds of news, there's this part where it's being censored. It's literally, we don't want disinformation. And in reality, it's information, but they don't like it because it goes against the agenda. So you do what you want with all of this stuff, but when you get that we have all been censored, that's why I'm very careful with my words. It means that you start looking for various forms of information because a lot of it has been censored. So if you're watching just one piece of news, that's what they want you to know. And other people who have been censored, they're just sharing what they know. So what makes this person's knowing more important or less, this being less important? You know what I'm saying here. There's a thing called Operation Mockingbird, and this is a real thing. I've been reading about it for years. And this, I'm going to read it carefully. The fact that this agency, not going to mention which one, inspired duplication of thought forms is given to all media. Overt messaging is a tried and true form of manipulation or mind control of the masses. The catchphrase is intended to be heard by all, whether it's on TV, radio, or any other electronic or printed media. The goal is to keep reinforcing the desired public response to the manufactured, programmed false narrative. The emotional message is intentionally put forth to create the desired response in the unsuspecting public mind. A recent one is that democracy is in danger, stated by every media outlet at the close of their programming daily. Who orders this unified broadcast message in all medias, and why? There are these videos that are out there of all these different news channels that are saying exactly the same message, exactly the same thing. So you got to understand, when you're getting a lot of news, it's these people that are telling you this narrative. And a lot of it is propaganda. They want you to be distracted. They want you to believe what they want you to believe. Back when I used to watch the news, oh my gosh, I remember clearly going, well, I really like so and so. He says the facts. And then I woke up and I was like, well, I see a whole bunch of other facts. And those facts are not those facts. And those facts, I dug into them further, were more truthful than those facts. And so when I say that I have been looking at this for a long time, these are the things that I'm seeing. And again, when we are understanding that this is going into our mind, your mind is your controller. Your mind is that thing that makes everything happen. And the three buttons on the top: intention, attention, and perception. So if they're controlling your perception, if they're controlling your attention, there you are. So when you're looking at Operation Mockingbird, look it up. Go and look at it through not the usual channels. Go and look in like DuckDuckGo or a different kind of browser. That's an important part of this because they're manipulating that too. There's brainwashing. Which he goes into detail. There's cognitive dissonance. That's a really big one. So that's that one where people can't believe. Like, for instance, I know you've heard this before. I'm going to say it again. I had that moment years ago where I was explaining to somebody things that were happening that aren't really in our benefit. It was like toxic things that we're taking on. And this person looked at me with like, Audrey, the government wouldn't do that to us. And it's like, but they are. And now you can see the patents on those things. You can see the actual government admitting to doing the thing that I said was happening a while ago. But as they're admitting to it, it's for this other reason. Regardless of the reason, it's toxic and we're breathing it in. So you have to get, if you are in cognitive dissonance, nothing wrong with it, nothing bad about it, but you're not seeing the truth and your consciousness is captured. It just is. So when you're able to be present and understand that there's all these different stories, I watch all these different stories. I don't believe everything I see, for God's sakes, but I'll do the critical thinking and I'll look at which of those things is actually happening, which one of them is viable, which one. And then if one seems like it's like, I'm not so sure about that, I'll dig into it. I'll look at it in different areas and I'll just put it in my consciousness. And I'm not going to do a lot with it, but I have an awareness of it. So why do we do all of this? As I'm looking at, got 3 minutes. There is I highly recommend looking at this book, getting this book. There's all these different things that you can do in this moment to keep yourself safe, to keep yourself healthy, to keep yourself calm. And one of them is, like everything, we live here in California, so we be prepared. I have water, I have food, I've got all the different things that I need in both places, my home and our center. So there's a part of it where I feel calm enough. If something happens, if the port's out and there's not food getting in, I have enough to take care of what I need to take care of. So when you are being aware and you are not distracted, you're not going to be at the effect of things. You're going to have that critical thinking going on and be like, well, is that something I should be doing? Or maybe not. It gives you that ability to be in your power and to do what you need to do in any given moment. But if we're distracted, if we're manipulated, if we're not clear on what's going on or in a lot of fear, fear is a big one. You're in their game when you're in fear. You're not in your power. So when you're calm, you're in your power. When you're calm, you're able to think more clearly. You're able to own the controller. Fear, you're getting the backseat. Oh, what's happening? I don't even know. I don't know how to deal with it. I can't. So in this moment, like that hurricane that went around, I know you've heard this before, but I'm going to say it again. Birds fly in the eye of a hurricane because it's the calm place to be. And they're going to get from this place to that place in the calm of the hurricane. And what do hurricanes do? Obviously, they bring stuff up. So there's a lot of stuff coming to the surface right now. There's a lot of information that is happening. Like this whole thing with that celebrity. That in itself is a huge, huge big deal. So when you are in the eye of the storm and you're in your vehicle, you keep your hands and your feet in the vehicle at all time. And you recognize, I am that I am. I am divinely guided. I am divinely protected. And you hold that prayer for all of humanity. And you keep your hands and your feet not grabbing for that drama or trauma or imagination of what could happen to you. You know, I'm weathering this storm. And you be in that space. You hold that in your prayers. And as you're holding it in your prayers for yourself, you're expanding that prayer out to others. There's a lot of people that need our prayers right now. It's a big moment. So as you're in the moment that we're all in, be in that calm. I have a calm is a choice meditation on my website. You can listen to that. It's less than 18 or less than 20 minutes. So bring yourself back to calm so that you can think more clearly. So you own your controller, so that you are making logical, reasonable, intentional choices. It's a very big moment right now, and we're all in this together. So I'm here for you, and be there for everyone else. Let's be together as a community with common unity. Okay? If you find yourself being divided and being angry with your friends or neighbors, sometimes they're in cognitive dissonance. It's okay. They're making their choices, and being angry with them isn't going to help you or them. So be in compassion for all of this, and then you can move forward intentionally. So it is 7-1, and I'm finished for this evening. Thank you very much for joining me. I love you all very, very much. And I will be back again next week on Wednesday night for this conscious mind tripping. Love you all very, very much. Good night.